So the more that we can choose ourselves on a day-to-day basis, knowing that more we choose ourselves, others will choose us as well. So just ask yourself that question. How can I choose myself every day in my choices, in my decisions? What does it mean to choose myself? So this could be, a lot of it is boundaries, right? Like with work, start with the things that you've already got going on in your life, work being one of them. Am I saying yes to overtime when I really want to say no? Am I neglecting my own workload to go and help out that colleague because I want to please them and I want to be accepted and validated and chosen by our boss, by our colleagues? How can I choose myself in this scenario? Maybe that looks like saying, no, not yet. I'm not able to do this, but I would love to support you with that. So just, again, practicing using what you've already got going on in your life and asking yourself before you react, before you respond, how can I choose myself? Start with that. And if someone's like, oh, do you want to go out on Friday night? Instead of immediately saying yes, just say something that gives you some time and space. Like, oh, that sounds great. Let me just go and check my calendar. And in that moment, you're choosing yourself because you're choosing to give yourself that space to respond rather than reacting from a space of wanting to be chosen. Because it's not just romantic partners. We want to be chosen by our friends. We want to be chosen by our colleagues and our bosses and our family. We're just constantly looking to be chosen. And what that means is validated, accepted, loved.
But, you know, at the end of the day, like you said, it's when we validate ourselves that's when, you know, when we no longer require the validation from external sources, that's when it comes anyway. I'd love you to say a little bit more. I'm very aware of the time and we're going to wrap it up very shortly, but can you just say a little bit more about boundaries? I think boundaries are such an interesting subject and something that particularly women need to learn how to put them into place without feeling guilty and all of that kind of stuff. Can you speak to that, Sami?
Yeah, putting boundaries in place without feeling guilty. Again, goes back to our current relationship that we have with our boundaries. As children, were we ever punished and told off for having boundaries? I know I certainly was. You know, we weren't allowed to have, well, not that we weren't allowed, but like we all had our own rooms, but my parents could just come in, you know, because then if we were like, can you knock before you come in my room? Oh, I'm sorry. You want me to knock in my own house? You know, it's these little subtle things that we have then developed. It's not safe to have boundaries. It's not safe to express boundaries. It will lead to abandonment. It will lead to rejection. So a lot of what we feel when we set a boundary is fear. This person is not going to like me. This person is going to not want to be in my life. Another aspect of why we struggle with boundaries is because of how we see other people's boundaries. So someone might be trying to set a boundary with us. I'm sure we all have situations and examples of when someone's trying to set a boundary with us. I know for me, when someone's like, you know, I'm engrossed with a boyfriend and I want to spend all my time with him. And then he says to me, oh, you know, I would really just love to have this evening by myself. Oh my God, why? Why do you not want to be with me? You know, and I would make boundaries something that is actually disconnecting. So why the hell would I then want to go and set my own boundaries if this means disconnecting from people? So I guess just looking at, how do you feel about boundaries? When someone sets a boundary with you, how does that feel? For me, it felt very scary. I like, oh, okay, it must mean that you don't like me anymore then if you're setting a boundary with me.
Yeah.
Was exploring that. And again, building up setting boundaries in a safe way, starting with yourself, going back to that self-love journey. We struggle to set boundaries with others because we don't keep the boundaries that we have with ourselves. So why the hell will we then keep boundaries with others when we don't keep them with themselves? I see this a lot. There's not so much the setting the boundary, sometimes that's the issue, it's the keeping it. But we might say, oh, I'm going to set a boundary right now and say that I'm going to spend the day with you, but I'm not going to spend the night. And then we spend the day with them and it feels good. It feels great. Oh my God, I don't want it to end. Oh, fine, I'll stay the night. Break our own boundaries in this way. So if you want to strengthen your boundaries, start with the ones you have with yourself. It, again, could be something so simple like the amount of time you spend on social media. Set a boundary. I'm going to come off my phone, come off social media by 10 o'clock. And the more you practice what it means to set a boundary, to keep a boundary, then you will just naturally start to feel that respect for yourself. Oh my God, I respect myself. I'm keeping my boundaries. And the more that we respect our own boundaries, the more we want others to respect our boundaries, and the more that we respect other people's boundaries. And those feelings of guilt and feeling bad will naturally dissipate because our relationship with boundaries has changed. We start to see them as a really good, healthy thing. So all of that will then just be a natural occurrence.
Love it. Very, very wise words, Sami. Let me ask you just one more question before we wrap up. For the single women out there who do really want to, you know, manifest a healthy relationship in their lives, what are your best words of advice for them?
I love that. Love that. I don't even know if I can say it in a sentence, because it's like it just comes back to that self-love and knowing that you are so deserving, you are so worthy of that healthy relationship. It's like actually brings me to tears when I think back to my past self and clients coming in and they just don't feel deserving or worthy. And when they do have it, they sabotage it because, again, doesn't feel familiar. Why are you doing this for me? So it's about, really is about creating that life for yourself that's so full of love and so full of joy that it's just pouring out of you. And again, we hear this a lot, like, I have so much love to give. Give it to yourself.
Hmm.
Give it to yourself, because the more that you can cultivate the most incredible life for yourself. And I know that when I started traveling and living abroad, I would just have moments to myself like, oh my God, I did this for me. I didn't do this for any other reason, but for me. Life is so short. And if we're spending it chasing men or chasing opportunities and work opportunities, and we're constantly in an energy of chasing and wanting and needing, life is just going to pass us by. Can we invite ourselves instead to be in a space of presence, joy, contentment, regardless of what's happening in our life? Because life is fleeting. Before you know it, you're going to be in another chapter, and you are going to want to you're going to wish that you had really been a bit more present in that space in your life. Because I think sometimes when we're wanting that relationship to come through, we're in the waiting room and we're like, oh, my life will begin when I find that person. But what I hear a lot from married people is, oh God, if only I just valued that time with myself, because if I knew that I was going to meet that person, I would have valued that time a lot more.
Yeah.
Can you get yourself to that space where you know in your heart, you know that that person is coming? That person's coming. You don't need to control. You don't need to worry. You don't need to make anything happen. It's going to happen because you're worthy and you're deserving of that. In the meantime, how can you use this sacred space, this sacred time, to really be with yourself? Enjoy life with you, because it is going to change. That's the only thing that is guaranteed about life, is things are changing. It's always changing and evolving. A lot of people find that quite scary, but it's a very exciting concept of what it means to be alive, to be a human. Can we embrace all of it, all of this human experience that is with us today, rather than being so tunnel focused on having that thing and giving into that arrival fallacy, which means when I have this, then I will be happy.
Yeah.
Remind yourself that it's all an illusion and you are in control of your own happiness. Happiness is not something that we get. It is a state of being. And we do get to make that decision. to be happy, to be content. Sometimes happiness can trigger people, right? Because it's like, I can't make myself happy. Okay, if happiness is here, what's down here? Is it contentment? Let's work towards that first, being content, being at peace, feeling joy, and just making those choices.